Wow, good morning. Wednesday morning, home stretch. Welcome to the Next Great App Showcase. This is a sample of the programming that we do at the Banff World Media Festival and nextMEDIA, which takes place in the Canadian Rockies, June 12th to 15th. I'd like to turn over this discussion on what might be the next great app to Robert Montgomery. Thanks.
Thank you, Jory. Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Good morning, everyone. It's great that we have some people here this morning. We were, excuse me, we were kind of wondering. Thank you so much for coming. Give yourself a round of applause. How many people here have an iPad? Hands up. How many people here do not have an iPad? Of those people who do not have an iPad, are you thinking of getting one or another tablet? Hands up. Of the people who do have a tablet, how many watch video on it? How many do not? There we go. Video. That's a great entree. So this morning, we have an interesting mix of programming. We're going to have a showcase of some great apps and also some businesses that work in the application environment. And we've got some really, really important and accomplished people to talk about their companies and the things they're doing, which hopefully will be useful to inform your business. And to start off the discussion, we're going to have an interesting discussion with our friend Regan Fletcher from Intel, who's going to give us some predictions, which I think will set the stage. We'll then culminate our discussion today with a panel discussion where we can all make our points and talk about some of the burning issues that our panelists feel they're facing in their businesses. You're all welcome to make points during the discussion as well. We'd love to hear what you have to say and address your questions as time permits. I'd like to introduce you to the people I have on stage here now. To my immediate left is Regan Fletcher, who's Director of Business Development for the App-Up piece of Intel. We'd like to thank Intel as well for making it possible for us to be here today.
On behalf of Intel, me too.
Yeah. To his left is Daniel Tibbetts, the SVP of GoTV Networks. To his left is Zane Vella, the CEO and founder of RCDB. And finally, well, yeah, we can all clap. And finally, we have Rob Scully, Director of Business Development from Polar Mobile. I think Rob's likeness is the most accurate.
Yeah, it's uncanny.
I don't know what you think. So let's get rolling. Let's get right into it. And I'm going to first turn to Regan. Regan, we discussed you giving some predictions to the audience today and telling everyone what you think is going to materialize in the app market. Why don't you go ahead? What's your first prediction?
Well, my first prediction, I think, is that Ocean Models gets picked up. Maybe that's just a wish, but I think I have three predictions for this year. The first one is predicated on numbers 2 and 3. So I'm trying to go at this from the perspective of content ownership, which I'm assuming most of the people in the audience, that's a description for the people in the audience. My first prediction is that if you own content, 2011 is going to be all about kitchen consumption, which takes a little bit of explanation. So that leads me to my two other predictions. The second one is that 2011 is going to be the year of the tablet and the year that smart TV finally takes hold. So just by a quick show of hands, how many people here were at CES a couple weeks ago?
Wow.
And what was the thing that you saw everywhere you went at CES? Tablets. 85 tablets launched at CES this year. You're going to see tablets from multiple OEMs running multiple operating systems and powered by multiple providers of chips, of processors, Intel being one of them. So tablets are going to take off this year. And the other thing that I mentioned is smart TV. When you're walking around CES, my guess is not only did you see tablets, but you saw a lot of smart TV, a lot of Google TV. Intel isn't really too keen on Google TV catching on, but that seems to be the name that's sticking. So I'll give in and I'll call it Google TV as well. So prediction number 2, tablets and Google TV really take hold and take off this year. Third prediction is that 2011, from an app perspective, is going to be about going cross-platform. I think if you have content and you've looked at building an app over the past couple of years, the first thing you looked at was iPhone and now iPad. So you looked at iOS. And then you asked yourself, what other platforms should I be building for? So if you're asking yourself this year, how should I prioritize the different platforms, the different operating systems, you're asking yourself last year's question. The question to ask yourself this year, if you own content, how do I get my content cross-platform in an economical way? So I read an IDC study the other day that said that the average developer is now building for 4 platforms. And I think you're going to see that increase. By the end of this year, it's going to be 5, 6, maybe even 7. So if you own content, you shouldn't be thinking about how you prioritize platforms. You should be thinking about the greatest possible distribution across all platforms. So that takes me back to my first prediction, which is that 2011 is going to be about, in my opinion, is going to be about kitchen consumption. My wife and I just finished a remodel of our kitchen, and as we were planning this out, we added a new little kind of media center into the kitchen, and I was trying to figure out what type of device am I going to build in there for our new kitchen. And that's when it really struck me that the way that the mobile app ecosystem is moving, I should be able to consume not whatever I want, but I should be able to consume different portions of your content sitting in my kitchen. And the rise of tablets and Google TV is going to allow that to happen. I'm going to be able to sit, I should be able to sit at my kitchen table in the morning, sit down to have my breakfast, and consume, Bill Maher's show is one of my favorite shows. So I don't want to sit and watch an episode of real time, but what I do want to do is consume a couple minutes of new rules. If I'm sitting at the table with my kid helping him with his homework, I should be able to just open up a National Geographic app that's all about ancient Egypt or all about European architecture. So if you own content, you should be thinking about these predictions I just made and figuring out how you can repurpose your content to be consumable in small snippets in the kitchen. I've kind of gone on for a little while, haven't I?
That's good. That's very, very interesting. So that's excellent food for thought for our discussion after. So snippets of video content or content of any description in the kitchen is the third prediction. The second was, maybe you can summarize them for us.
The first is think about consumption in the kitchen. The second is the reason you're thinking about the kitchen is because of the growth in the distribution of tablets in Google TV this year. And the third is go cross-platform so that no matter what type of device I have in my kitchen, I can consume your content. If all you're thinking about is iOS and I go buy Google TV, I'm not going to be able to consume your apps on that Google TV that's running Android or running Intel's App Up platform. And those platforms are going to be out there in the devices that people are buying. So think about repurposing your content. But my favorite example, what I would love to do, I've never been to one of these TV industry events. I always go to the boring tech events, and the people here seem much cooler. But I would love to meet the people that own Mad Men. What I would request of them is, if you're going to build an app for Mad Men, don't make it an app where I can consume episodes. Give me a Don Draper app so that I can go into, if I'm going to New York or I'm going to LA, I can find the cool lounges that a Don Draper character would go to. Extend your brand, extend your content with different snippets of information that I can consume on my tablet.
Interesting. So be prepared to have olive oil, bacon bits, and flour on your tablet device. but nonetheless consumable. So Lionsgate are here. You could maybe make that request them directly with respect to the brand
I
of
will
Don
do
Draper.
that, yes.
Terrific. So one of the things I failed to mention, and I forgot because it's so early this morning, and I actually haven't had coffee, is I asked all of our panelists today to give us 3 things about themselves that would be interesting to set the stage. And since I'm going to do it for everyone else, I forgot to do it for Regan here, but maybe you'll understand where Regan's predictions come from when I give you the 3 interesting things about Regan. The first is he got chased by a bear in his first real job out of college.
It's true.
The second is he has Marvin the Martian painted on his ice hockey goalie mask.
That's true as well.
And the third is he's addicted to Cut the Rope and Star Walk on his iPad. Who's seen Cut the Rope and Star Walk? Ah, good. There you go. You know,
A couple.
some brothers and sisters out there.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's a terrific way to set the stage, and you know, be interested to hear once we get through the showcases if there's agreement or disagreement with some of the things that Regan put forth. So now I have the pleasure to introduce you to someone I've known for a long time and is a very important player at the intersection of digital content and Hollywood. Dan Tibbetts, who significantly developed and sold the show Rome to HBO, is a longtime Hollywood content executive and leader, and ran the Fox Lab for News Corporation. And he's been in the TV and digital media business for 18 years, which not a lot of us can say. So over to you, Dan. Please do enlighten us and tell us about GoTV and your thoughts.
Yeah, let me move over to the podium if I may have a couple of slides. First off, I want to say I love you. What a great setup.
Thank you.
Everything you said goes exactly into what
I
I'm
wish you were
gonna
one of the
talk
ocean
about.
models, but
I'm sorry?
I wish you were one of the ocean models saying that, but I'll take it from you.
Get one over here. I wanted to move over here because I want to just share some very, very brief slides on our company. In short, GoTV takes tier 1 media companies and brings them to mobile. We work with companies like NFL, NASCAR, ESPN, Univision, National Geographic. So there is a National Geographic app. You can sit with your nephews, your nieces, your kids, and enjoy Great Migrations, which was on a few months ago, and be able to share that experience while you're watching the show. But what I want to talk about is a little bit more broader than just our applications. We all know that this is a fast-moving market, and our perspective is you have to own the strategy or you're going to be regulated to a follower. So our strategic lens, we look through that mobility of media is really what's important here. And again, right to what you were talking about. Because we look at how consumers are engaging with media in newer, deeper, and more interactive ways as they are enabled by these networks and devices versus allowing our strategy to be led by device myopia, right? People are chasing devices, and that's not the right strategy, we believe. So we have learned over the years that consumer demand is not for access on 3 screens, all right? If it was, Media Flow, Sprint TV, Vcast, and others would have millions of subs. They don't, and Flow failed. So it is my opinion that controlling the strategy has largely been abdicated in favor of a Me Too, follow the device strategy. And I'll explain what that means in a few minutes. But it's not sustainable, and there's no opportunity to own IP under that type of strategy. So what GoTV does is we do 3 things very well. We bring strategy to the table. We examine a partner's assets, and we envision the mobility of media on phones, on tablets, and then on connected TVs and boxes. 2, we're the architect, okay? And our partners are the general contractors. I think that's the bet you're talking about remodeling your kitchen, you know, it's a good analogy. We're the architect in building those strategies. 3, we bring our deep distribution relationships as we syndicate widely as possible. It's kind of our version of homes passed. Let me go to the next slide, please. Actually, I think I can do it here. There we go. Thank you. The reality here is that all content owners must react to these concurrent paradigm shifts, and they need to do so by rapidly developing environments and executing complex delivery models to reach connected consumers, such as over-the-top, such as TV Anywhere. because mobile is only one part of this puzzle. So this means that we need to meet the consumer at the point of consumption. And we do that by extending the experiences that deepen engagement versus merely offering alternative access. Again, just putting video on a device is not the answer. So when I talk about control is critical, what do I mean by that? What is owning the strategy, right? It means agenda ownership. What is owning IP? It means ongoing differentiation, very important in this fast-moving market. What is owning distribution? It means optimized presence, working at the right speeds, at the right quality across all these different devices we're talking about. Because you have to control the iteration timing. These platforms are always evolving, right? You'd be surprised how many times Apple has upgraded their OS, and it's not a consumer announcement. We have upgraded apps 84 different times over one single OS iteration. So, and that's how you maintain leadership. So that's important. Let's go to the next slide here. Thank you. So everything I'm talking about here is about kind of a strategic lens of our company versus very specific development applications. But this is a very simple flow chart of our lens. And again, we need to start by creating a strategy that blends consumer, brand media, etc. We need to build, again, we're the architect of that design, that UI, that consumer engagement, and then we enable the distribution at any and all points. You talked about 4 platforms. We today deliver to literally every platform, whether it's a Panasonic television or a Samsung television, whether it's any one of the OS operating systems for your tablet or your phone. We need to be there so that the consumer can engage with us. And it's everything from on-carrier deck to the platforms we've talked about. And the reason is because there are more stores today than ever, and they're just going to grow. There's a difference between Sprint's Android store and Amazon's Android store, and you need to understand that, and that the consumers are coming in at all those different endpoints. And so the challenge today is about the discovery and the merchandising. Those are key points in this fragmented market, and you have to have the relationships at those endpoints to be successful. So that's a very broad overview of what we do as a company, but I thought important as we go into this panel discussion.
Thanks a lot. That's great, Dan. Very interesting and gives us some food for thought as we move forward. Rob Scully, what are the 3 things about Rob? 1, he became an uncle again on Friday. All right. 2, he's a big fan of Scotch. I presume that's the whiskey, not the people.
Yeah, the whiskey.
Okay, good. And 3rd, he learned to scuba dive at the Great Barrier Reef. And no shark bites.
No shark bites.
Good man. Over to you, Rob. Tell us about Polar Mobile.
So good morning, everyone. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Polar, who we are, and then dive into some trends that we're seeing and give you some more depth around what it is that we do. So put simply, we are we're an applications development company. And we are a leader because we have a platform that goes, again, cross-device and helps you manage that fragmentation. So again, we started off surveying the audience here to get a sense of what sort of devices you guys had on the tablet side. Interested in terms of smartphones to get a quick poll of the audience. How many of you are using an Apple phone right now? So I'm hoping you can look around when you put your hands up here. How many of you are using BlackBerry? Okay. And Android? And anyone else I missed that might be using something outside of that? Okay. So hopefully you were able to look around as you put your hands up there. It's a fragmented market. And if I were to dive down a little bit deeper and ask you, what are you using in terms of a Torch versus a Bold, or an iPhone 3 versus an iPhone 4? Quickly find that taking this sample population, we have a lot of fragmentation. And so our business model is to help organizations that produce content get their content out across all those devices and have a great experience through apps on all those devices. So we want to pop to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our goal is to help you as content producers to acquire new users, increase engagement, and drive new revenue. So in terms of acquiring new users, as we've spoken about, there is a lot of fragmentation in the market, and we believe that is going to continue. We are on Samsung Bata right now to help with those international customers we've got here, and we're hoping to be on Nokia later this year. What that means is that as content producers, you can come to an organization like Polar and be across all those devices with one point of contact. I was in a meeting last week with a content producer and sitting around a table with a couple VPs and an SVP of content. And I was sharing this with Regan yesterday. We were having this debate and getting into some detail around what devices this organization should be on first, what was their priority listing, and eventually this SVP of content stood up and said, "We are not in the business of picking device winners." And I was saying to Regan, I wish we could have got that on tape, because that's not your businesses. As being in the content space, your job is to develop content and then sell advertising against that. And our job is to figure out all the technology and make sure we get your content across all those devices. So as you can see on the top right there, the estimate is that in 2012, the number of PCs is going to decline relative to the number of smartphones and tablets shipped. So I think that's important to keep in mind that, you think back, so we as a company started 4 years ago, and we started before the first iPhone came out. And if you think of, we were going through some old phones we had in the office the other day, and we were looking at, as a joke, we had some of those old brick phones. And if you think back a couple of years, the technology and the user experience on mobile devices has it's phenomenal, basically, the growth and the ability of the user experience across those devices. So that's going to only continue. And as you can see below that, the advertising market is growing to meet that increased user demand on mobile. So one of the things that we do at Polar is help drive engagement. And we do that through a couple things. One, we believe strongly, obviously, in apps. We believe that apps drive more engagement. And we have a push technology. We have a strong relationship with the vendors. And because of our background with BlackBerry in particular, we've sort of understood the novelty and the value of push. So pushing content out to users drives engagement. And finally, driving revenue. So we believe that sponsorships are one of the best ways to drive revenue, and that providing apps for free and then providing premium content within that, or providing a premium version later on, is the best way to drive engagement. I just want to, before we go to the next slide, I just want to address one of the questions that I've received a lot at this conference, and that is around rights ownership. So in terms of Polar Mobile, we don't, we are a conduit, we're a technology partner, and we don't at any point take any sort of interest or rights in the content itself. So I just want to make sure that I clarified on that point, because that's a question I've been getting a lot here do you do anything with the content itself? And the answer is no. We simply take the content and get it out across all the devices. So our mantra is fast, easy works. So by show of hands, how many folks here have launched apps? Okay. And maybe by shaking or shaking your head, how many of you have had a good experience with it? Okay. It's sort of mediocre results. It can be difficult. It can be difficult, it can be time-consuming, and so what Polar does is make that fast and easy, and we make sure that the applications work over time. And so a big part of our business is making sure that as new devices come out, as new operating systems come out, you are future protected, and you can focus again on generating content. So on the bottom of the slide here, you can see that you can see our smart content engine, and that really is the magic black box that brings everything together. So you can see on the left-hand side all the different feeds that go into the ecosystem of mobile, and those include the content, ad serving, reporting, and you take all that, we integrate all that, and essentially you provide us your content, and we push that out across all the devices. So I like this slide because I think hopefully I hope you see this as an easy slide to read in terms of being able to partner with an organization to get content out across all the devices. And so what I'd like to highlight is, as a content producer, you're providing content, putting it through to us, and then that goes out across all the devices, including BlackBerry, iOS, Android, Windows Phone 7, and Samsung Data. We'd move to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we're seeing is, we've been in the apps game for 4 years, and we started off with a news experience, and we're finding that obviously the social experience and the media experience is what's driving our growth, and driving the growth of engagement for our customers. One of the things that we did recently that's interesting, I've been talking a little bit about this at this conference, is a recent app we did for the NHLPA, where we integrated some of their Twitter feeds into the app, and that's a great way to drive user engagement. So people are opening the app to check out the NHLPA, what the players are saying, and then once they're in that app, they're moving around within the app to look at some of the other content. Again, the media experience, I've demoed to a lot of people that I've seen here some of the video that we're doing, and we talked about video up here, but video is increasingly a big part of driving engagement with users. And then, as I mentioned before, being able to have a push screen and have a home screen on somebody's device. Move to the next slide there. So a little bit about Polar, as you can read on the slide there. We have customers across the world, and would love to work with more of you. Any questions or issues this one?
Anyone have a question, want to raise a point? I think we'll have time for a bit of that in our session. Thanks very much, Rob. Terrific. So we move along to Zane Vela. Zane has a really cool background as well, and the 3 tidbits about Zane, and you can see the bio for Zane in the materials online. And as you know, he's CEO and founder of RCDB. But we talked about Dan's pioneer experience. Well, Zane has a very significant experience as a pioneer as well. He put Lollapalooza on the internet in 1994, which is very cool.
Great heritage.
He recently produced the Netflix instant streaming disc for PS3, which has several million users. And finally, he's been developing interactive set-top box technology and apps for 20 years. So he is also a pioneer, and I think we will benefit greatly from his advice and experience. So tell us about what you're doing, Zane.
Good morning. I'm not going to talk a lot about my company this morning. I think it's early, right? Day 3 of a conference. I'd be happy to talk with anyone about it after. I think I'm going to try and tie it back to some of the comments and predictions about what it means to be consuming content, what it means to be making content, and what it means to be consuming it across all these devices that people are talking about. And I'll echo the sentiment about tablets. Most of what I'm going to show you is very tablet specific. The one thing I will mention is that the name of the company, RCDB, is the only thing I want to share, and that is the Related Content Database. And it's one of those names that people go, what a terrible name. And we agree in many ways, but what it's done is it's really forced us to focus on what it is that we do, as opposed to chasing after every opportunity that's out there. And what that means is the related content database is a database about what is related to a piece of content, okay? Not tackling the UI, not tackling the programming, not tackling what today's device is about, like, which are all very serious problems, and you have some gentlemen here who are really good at solving those problems. But really saying, okay, great, I've now invested, tens of thousands of dollars in this production, and I have a lot of other ancillary knowledge about my asset. What do I do with it? Like, where can I put it? How can I take the recipes that are related to my cooking show and actually put them in a format that I can make more money from down the line, right? How can I take the links to the music that I worked so hard to clear in a program and make those links part of what I actually sell to a network or a distribution channel, right? So it's really about holding on to the value of your related content as much as the core asset that you've developed. And really, it's a weird thing. It's like if you go back, the film The Graduate, the guy looks at him and he says, future plastics, right? Well, today the future is metadata. It's like you need the information about what you've created in order to drive the exploitation of that. And in some ways you have to think about it where if you don't control the related content exploitation of your asset, someone else will. So it's a really important thing as a producer, as a content creator, and as an executive in that area to start controlling that information early in the process. So, great. If you take that advice and you say, okay, well, that makes sense. I think I do know a lot of other things about my content while I'm producing it. Then what? So, we've spent a lot of time, and like I said, thank you for the introduction. I've been doing this for a long time, like working through what it means to make video interactive. I've actually never done anything else. In 1991, I was working with the internet and doing video streaming on the internet before Netscape. So I have some credibility in the area. I've also done webcasting and internet video for large brands like Disney and Netflix and nonprofits like museums and the National Science Foundation. So I've had a chance to work across a wide range of different kinds of customers. And as technologies come and go, one thing actually stays the same, and that is time. Okay? And what I mean by that is, regardless of the resolution of the video that you might be streaming, or regardless of the actual device it's going to, time never changes. So if you cut a piece of video in the mid-90s and you went through and you indexed the information related to it, meaning at this moment in time, this is the song that's playing, and at this next moment in time, this is some biographical information about the cast. No matter what device that gets distributed on, time doesn't change. So the related content database is a database of time-based metadata. That means you index that related content according to time in the program. Okay, and then as the years go by, people will figure out different ways of actually using that data, right, to exploit that in an increasingly connected world. So the device du jour is the tablet, and that's fantastic because interactive TV is a bummer. Like, putting all that stuff up on the screen actually detracts in many ways from a TV experience. So it actually ends up being fantastic to move the related content over to a secondary device, especially if you have an index of time so that you can synchronize the tablet experience with actually what's happening on the television. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of the technologies that allow that synchronization. I'm going to focus on one of them today. I'm going to focus on something called EBIF. It's a very cable-friendly technology. EBIF is actually an interactive technology that leverages the technology or what's inside legacy set-top box. Legacy set-top boxes, so like from Comcast, Time Warner Cable, or whoever your, they don't want to upgrade those set-top boxes any more than you do. Well, any more than you want to pay for them. And I think it's important to focus on these real-world technologies that actually are in the tens of millions in people's living rooms, as opposed to the things that we hope are going to grow. So what we're going to look at is some examples that we're developing with partners of what you can do with time-based metadata on a tablet, leveraging these existing set-top boxes. Very good. I also thought I would try and jot down some of the lessons I've learned about applications, right? I think the panel is about applications. So when I'm doing work with a customer, they've actually, invested in the data and have a show, I try and say, just keep 3 things in mind. Make sure that whatever the app is that you're making, make sure it's useful, right? There are a lot of things, there's gimmicks, but if you're going to spend the time and money, like the mobile, the device, it's like really focus on utility, solve a problem. The whoopee cushion for the moment in 99 cents, it's okay for as a gimmick app, but really in the content world, think about the utility. What can you do with that? Second, it's really important to personalize that. Don't turn the mobile or the tablet into another broadcast device. There's all kinds of great broadcast devices. Think about what you do in an app as how can it be personal? How can the user really make it their own? And lastly, think about the accessibility. Do the right thing in the right place, right? Like there's so many applications that just in some ways, they mix up like the right place at the right time. So we're now going to look at some apps that I think satisfy some of these. So the first one we're going to look at is a little CBS example. So you'll see that box down along the bottom. That's called eBIF. Like I said, it's a legacy set-top box technology. So this is what you actually could see on 20 to 50 million set-top boxes around the world. As a content owner, you create this very simple eBIF application that is presented to the viewers. Okay, a lot of people go crazy with this. The way we're helping our customers use eBIF is to do nothing more than present this kind of proposal. In this case, it's Hawaii 5.0. Right along with the 5.0, you press OK with your remote control. Next slide, please. You get a quick code. It actually, in production, it says, get the Hawaii 5.0 app and enter this code. And then next slide. You're done. Nothing else happens on the TV. The tablet, you enter that code into the tablet, and it immediately syncs up, and it knows what you're watching. And so this is our out-of-the-box application. Like we don't expect our customers to go to market. They can if they want with this basic application, but we provide this as the starting point, and then they can modify it and develop the creative as much as possible, right? Like we're really, our job is to get the data up to the screen, and then a customer can kind of do what they want with it. So it does 3 things. One, it syncs, right? It knows what you're watching. It knows a little bit of the metadata about the program, upper left-hand corner. The second most important thing, it knows exactly who's in that scene. That's the time-based metadata being leveraged in a consumer experience. What is one of the #1 use cases for the internet in the living room? Who's that guy? Getting on IMDb, going out trying to find more information about someone you see on TV. So you have an opportunity as a program owner. Don't let them drift off to IMDb. Own them right there. Like take that information. They're your actors. It's your content. Okay, so you can see in this episode or in this scene, you can go all the way down to the scene level. And if you do it right, you can actually go as far as saying precisely who's on screen right now. On the right-hand side, we're showing a couple different things. The simplest is to just integrate something like IMDb, but you can get that data from any one of several providers. If you're interested in this, the guys from Baseline have a booth just over on against the far wall. They're a fantastic database of information in a great way that you can control your own. I'll just go through a couple of these slides real quick and we'll get back to the discussion. So here's another example of product data, right? These are, again, This is not the end user experience that's actually recommended, but we're helping our customers do things like automatically search eBay based on the product data, so that, based on whatever's out in eBay, you can automatically take your product data, run it against eBay, and present that to your customers, to your viewers, in a way that can be automated, so you don't actually have to keep updating it yourself. Let's take a look at a couple more. This is something we're actually developing with eBay to drive that concept. So it's a simple concept. The idea is watch with eBay. If you have a project that you think is appropriate for this, please come up and talk to me afterwards. So same thing. This is eBIF. You're on 20 to 50 million set-top boxes. It comes up. It says this has watch with eBay. You say OK. Next slide. In this case, the set-top box is already registered, so it knows who you are. Next slide. And then we've got the same thing. Knows exactly what the film was, knows exactly what actors are in that scene, who's on right now. Same thing, be able to go deeper into that filmography and background. Let's jump to the next one, please. And same thing. In this case, it's surfacing the product data related to surfacing the eBay auctions related to the product data in that scene. Next slide. We're done. Thanks very much.
That's great. Thank you. Very interesting. So we've got a lot of food for thought. We had Regan starting out with some predictions, which I think were very interesting and succinct. We had Dan talking about GoTV and their process for taking things interactive. We had Rob talking about Polar and how important it is to take everything across all devices and have a really easy way to do that. And then finally, Zane had some very interesting real-world examples about how important a database is. And I think everyone has spoken to a lot of the needs that content owners, content sellers think about in terms of how to deal with this space and how to monetize it. I'd now like to have a brief discussion with our group and give everyone a chance to articulate the burning issue that they feel is most compelling and that's on their mind. And Dan, I'd like to start with you. We were talking about how you felt media companies may be missing the boat here by not focusing on the ownership and control of processes. Maybe you can elaborate on that as a burning issue, and if our other panelists want to address any of those elements as well, that would be great. Dan?
Yeah, my viewpoint on that is, coming out of some of the traditional media companies like CBS and Fox, the whole business model of those companies is to control distribution, control quality, control process, right, and have ownership of IP. And it seems to me, which in all honesty is good for our business, they have regulated that to third-party companies. And so they've lost control of all of those elements, including revenue. And that just may be a logical evolution of new media, right, that they're getting into. But it strikes me as odd. And I see applications on all the networks, and this isn't to dig any single application, where it's a lightweight video application, which is fine, but it doesn't dig deeper into why the consumer cares about that particular program, and or even the video quality is, inferior. And so it frustrates me when I see, and I will use this example, a 60 Minutes app, and I ask myself the question, what is that app doing to get me more interested in 60 Minutes? And two, is the app developer someone who's also encoding and delivering that video quality, or is that done by a third party? And what is the process for making sure that the video is optimized? Because at the end of the day, again, I remember being at, the networks, and if you had a moment of down airtime or video quality was poor, you were done. That was it. You delivered the highest quality, best product for that network, or you didn't exist. And so anyway, that's kind of my point on that is
it's kind of a paradox.
There's an entire entertainment value being in a brand that is now at risk because we're taking new media and we're putting it over in a corner, or we're regulating it to third parties that aren't necessarily taking care of the brand in the same manner.
Regan, there's more to mobile universe than iPhone and Android. Tell us.
Well, first, I just wanted to comment on what Dan was saying. I agree that the ownership of your content is really important, and what I would encourage people to think about is own it, but don't own it with big, thick iron chains wrapped around it. Now, and so just to try to segue to what you're just asking me about, yes, you do have to think cross-platform, but if you think cross-platform to get the greatest distribution possible, but you own your content, like it's chattel or something, and people can't access it the way they want to. People have to be free to get to it easily. And
Absolutely.
the biggest mistake I think the music industry made, that I think the TV industry can learn from, is make it accessible and figure out ways to monetize it and therefore own it in other ways without wrapping it clad in steel. That's what I'd add to ownership.
Well, that's interesting, and that maybe speaks to Rob's burning issue about fragmentation. Maybe you could elaborate that for us.
Sure. So it goes to Reagan's point about you want to have a great user experience regardless of device. So you want to focus on creating great content, but not necessarily be in the game of picking device winners. And we think in the tablet space we're going to see. As Regan mentioned in Vegas, everyone was all over tablets, and I think that's that fragmentation that we've seen in the smartphone market is only going to continue in the tablet market. And so, putting all your eggs in one basket with one device, one operating system is not the way to go. Yep.
Well,
don't discriminate. Don't discriminate against your users that might be using an Android or a Nokia or something like that.
And the cross-platform question goes to a point that Zane made in one of his slides about it being useful. If you make your app only for iPhone, that's not useful to me. It doesn't even exist. So if you're thinking about making your content useful, start at the very base level of getting it cross-platform so it can actually be useful to anyone. Even if it's a crappy app and it's not useful at all, at least let me access it on my device and find out for myself that it's a piece of crap.
Zane, getting interactive TV off the TV as a burning issue, which kind of relates to this issue of fragmentation and getting on all platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, Mike, please, hello?
I think it's live.
I think it's extremely frustrating to see what TVs are turning into, right? Like you turn on the TV and all of these applications, and I find it overwhelming. I think that it's a lot better to think about these very powerful devices that people are carrying around in their pockets or in their briefcases. They really make sense to interact with. Like, it's sitting on someone's lap, it's in your hand, and think about those synchronized experiences as what you want to leverage. But I have to say, even after listening to this panel and thinking about some of the dialogue, I think the key point is actually what you heard from that executive. Like, I'm not in the business of choosing device winners. And it's like, I think that's actually the most important thing. Like, don't burn up your resources chasing after nascent platforms. It's useless, right? And if you are going to do that, do work with an expert like one of these guys who will handle a lot of the transition. It makes, I mean, you could bury half a dozen brilliant engineers chasing after these different platforms right now, and the money is just going to be thrown out the window if you're actually not thinking about your show, your content, your audience, and what that is going to mean in 5 years. Right? You have to be producing value. You have to be thinking about your content not as like a platform choice today or a device, but really what is the related content that's going to show up in the kitchen, right? How to break down a 23-minute show, right? How to break that down into consumable bite-sized pieces of content, so that you can look at other distribution channels, as well as the data and links and other related content that you can use for promotion, syndication, and generating other revenue streams. Like, don't get sucked down the technology drain. It is content first, right? Like, that's the whole thing. It's like it really is content first.
Let the
Fantastic.
people like us handle the technology, and you guys take care of the content.
Technology and distribution, yep.
Sorry, Dan, was that?
Technology and distribution, right? It's key to have those relationships and know what platforms to put your content and how.
Fantastic. We have been given the hook. I'd like to thank our speakers very much for their time and thank you for attending.
Thank you for getting up so early.
Thanks for getting, and they're all here to meet you. So come on up, say hello. Maybe there's something you can work on with them. Please do. They've got lots of answers to your questions, so we'll continue the panel informally. Thank you.